Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. As you know, I'll be presenting on about building secured and scalable IoT solution using Azure SQL database. Quick introduction about me. I'm a data professional with 20 plus years of experience. In my current role, I'm involved with enterprise scale cloud data migrations and leading a global data platform delivery and analytics team. I am one of the board member of AnySQL user group in Boston. AnySQL New England SQL Server user group is one of the largest and oldest user group in the country and I think internationally. Also, I am one of the lead part of leadership team member in DBA virtual user group, DBA VUG. Here is my contact information. If you have any question after this session, then please feel free to shoot me an email or message via Twitter. Okay, so let's get going. How many of you, I know you cannot raise your hand and I cannot see everything, but just how many of you use IoT solution as a consumer? And I'm sure all of us are raising our hands here, right? Because we all consume IoT solutions from our morning to evening, day-to-day life. My elder kid, senior in high school, she started driving recently, and as a nervous mom, I really like the fact that I can track her location on my phone. My next door neighbor, when she travels out of town and I know she's traveling, and then I would see her living room lights keep switching on and off, then I know that she's doing this from Italy just to fool the potential burglars. In nutshell, we all are using IoT solutions in our day-to-day life. But when you see this picture from the lenses of data, what do you notice here? What do you see? We see tons and tons of high volume, heavy volume data moving from various devices across the globe to internet, right? That is, and this is what is something like, okay, well, now our data mind gets activated. There is a lot of data. And what kind of data? High volume data. Decision making. We want to know what's going on because based on that, we are making a lot of decisions. So all in all, but this picture, it gives that how important it is from the data perspective to go and then see the further picture if we want to go and understand this picture. A typical IoT solution, it would be, this is like, there are many components, right? As you can see in this picture. There are devices and then various methodologies to consume the data. So IoT solution, it includes several components. We can see that, right? From the device communication to management. Let's walk through from high level some of these components. What do they do? And maybe let me switch off my camera so you can get the full view of screen. Sensor or edge devices. Sensor or edge devices, these are the devices, they are lying where they are actually collecting the telemetry data and they are moving that to the cloud gateway. The cloud gateway is the next piece, which is basically, it is managing the bidirectional communication. Now, this is the piece when it comes to any cloud in a solution. First thing you would see, oh, okay, that communication should be seamless. That communication should be secured. That's the first thing it comes in our mind. And please make a note of these double arrow key because here the communication is both ways. Now, the data is heavy volume, too much data, but at the same time, the data is real time. It's critical that the data moves to the next level where it is actually being processed real time. That real time is the key thing because if I'm driving somewhere and I want to know, oh, that is somewhere like, oh, how is the traffic is going to be? Shall I take that route or maybe I change that route? So that means that this is important that the stream processing, wherever it happens, it should be lowest latency. It is processing the data and deciding based on the data, making some actions and the decisions which are critical for the folks who are dependent on that. So then moving along, the next piece comes into this picture is warm storage. Because obviously when there is data, there should be some place which is going to store that. And what is the critical piece here when it is a warm storage? We already discussed low latency, too much data, and heavy data processing. And events and messages, how are they getting ingested? Are they coming like one at a time when they are getting captured across the globe and then too many devices and lot of data? No, they are coming in volley, they are coming in a pattern which is a stream heavy data ingestion. That means that our warm storage, we should pick a solution which can keep the lowest latency possible. And at the cold storage, like your water consumption meter, right, towards the end of the month, all the devices, they would be collecting the data, put it somewhere, and then accordingly bills would be generated and sent to every household that this was your water consumption. So there is no real-time data processing involved there. At the same time, there is too much data when it is doing this heavy aggregation and then and generating the report and sending that to every household. So that can be the cold storage. How do we consume the data towards the end? Yes, you are looking for some dashboarding, reporting, and if it is something you are doing some kind of trend analysis. Hey, last year in summer you consumed very less water compared to this summer. So what's wrong or what's going on? So from that perspective, your machine learning algorithms, they help a lot. So these are the typical IoT solution, various components involved, starting from devices to the end site where you can see that visualization or the action part. If we look at this piece from the layered approach, there are things, devices, there are this insight, which is super critical, that we do this in meaningful information, we retrieve from this data, and then based on that, we take our next action. How that translate when, like, what do we have in Azure? How that translate if we talk about, okay, let's build some solution in Azure, right? So now what are we trying to do here? We are just trying to understand this heavy picture solution architecture from the high level perspective. We are not going in detail. What we understood from the think side, there are devices. Now the devices can be, and I would show you some of the devices what I have, and we actually have captured some pictures also here. So the devices can be like a one device, or if it is a water meter, a water bill, water meter, which is there installed on every household. That means it is a bulk devices. And then there are some devices which are super smart. They have a little bit of processing power at their own end. They can run a little bit of analytics. They have a little bit of their own memory. That is called IoT edge devices. So we have like a varied form of these things. And then we already discussed, right, the cloud gateway. Now, when we translate now from the concept which we learned in the previous slide to what do we have in cloud, in Azure, then we can again, there is no dearth of options available in Azure. There can be multiple options. There can be multiple recipes. But from the high level thing, when you see the layer which is things, device to cloud gateway, that can be IoT Hub or that can be IoT Central application. We will see when we do our demo, what are we going to pick and why are we going to pick that. But in this case, okay, so with the IoT Hub, secured communication, your data reaches here towards the within cloud, and now it should be it should go through the stream processing or the data pipeline, which should be super quick, which should be able to handle the burst, huge data ingestion, and at the same time smart enough to start running and execute the analytics. And obviously there comes Azure SQL database. It plays really good role, how it can peacefully, nicely sit and then handle all these kind of various workloads and then, and provide the low latency results. So we have things, insights, and action, these three layers, which we just saw in the previous, these are the core architecture layers, things, insight, and the last side, which is action. Any questions so far? Do we have any question on this architecture side?
I have not seen anything as of yet, but I will let you know when one rolls in.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, right? We spoke a lot about devices. So devices can be Raspberry Pi, which is like currently, right? If you are, it's so difficult to find. At least I could not buy a Raspberry Pi as of in today's market because of the chip shortage. But yeah, I could get something from friends. Really good solution, which I like, right? If you end up building that, right? Because today we'll be using some of the simulators, or I might be using my phone also. ESP32, Azure IoT Kit or ESP32 microcontroller, those are the really good devices. And just to give you a quick glimpse of that, let me just switch on my camera, and if you can see that, right? So from your USB hub, and you can connect, not USB, sorry, from your USB port, you can connect to this IoT device. There will be a little bit of display where if you are collecting some temperature or those kind of telemetries, this particular IoT device can give you all that information. And then how we will be connecting that, anyways, we are going to see that. So these are the glimpse of some IoT devices. There can be also not only the device, you can simulate the workload using your Windows VM. And also you can simulate the workload with some of the apps which you can install on your phone. And you can also get some real-time data from your phone using those apps and send that to a cloud. So this is the sample, just to get glimpse of like how these devices are and how that look and feel. Moving along. Okay, so we did discuss, right? There can be multiple recipes for IoT solution using Azure SQL database. This is one of the recipe in, if you are more interested, there's a really good Microsoft Learn module around the IoT devices and how Azure SQL database is a good fit. And one of the recipe they used using that Azure VM workload and moving to IoT Hub, Azure function, and the database and the Power BI. Is this the recipe? Can I just replace Azure VM my device and stick with this? And that is what we have got? No. There can be multiple ways to build your IoT solution. The beauty of doing that in Azure is how each piece or the one side of coin connect the dots nicely, integrates in a very secured and the seamless manner to the next layer. That's the beauty. And it's very important that when we understand a couple of these recipes and we connect the dots, we feel very confident that, oh, okay, that is how actually data keeps moving. And we really appreciate how well they integrate and how confident you feel, because underneath everything is moving in a secured manner. So this is another recipe. Now this recipe, what it is doing, let's understand, because this is what is we are going to do our demo around this recipe. This recipe is talking about, I'm using device as my cell phone. There's a plug and play IoT app which I have installed. What does that app do? That app is actually collecting the location of my phone, like how there are days you're tracking, oh, where is your kid going, maybe you just want to make sure if they're going somewhere far with friends, and you are able to track their location. And also sometimes, like for my younger one, right, if his cell phone battery goes below 5%, I want to get also alerted, so I can nudge him that, hey, why are you not charging your phone, or what's up. So in that case, so this is the one device currently I'm using, getting the real-time data around my cell phone with the location and the battery and like how much it is charged. The next piece, because this is the recipe we are building, we are using Azure IoT Central. Azure IoT Central is a really neat and clean and IoT application, which actually gives you by default built-in dashboards, which gives you many other sample examples of how a good IoT solution within that Azure framework can be built. So if you are starting, then yes, IoT Central is a great starting point. Now, after that, we can have multiple choices, which we saw in this previous picture, right? You can have Hub or or Azure function. What we are picking, Event Hub. Event Hub is another piece which makes sure that when the data is reaching to Event Hub, it integrates very well with the IoT solution. It can process high scale big data, and it does the ingestion to the various destinations. But in our case, we are using Stream Analytics job. The Stream Analytics job, when we will see the beautiful, like how beautifully you can create the data pipelines, and you can build your own Stream Analytics job and keep it running. And then obviously Azure SQL database, and you can see the dashboard or whichever form you want to see the outcome. Any questions so far before we get into the demo piece?
None so far.
Okay. Okay, so I just named that, like, because these are the connecting the dots or the hops, right? Every hop is important in the journey. So these are the hops. We will be making 5 hops to reach our destination and let the journey begin. Okay, so the connecting the dots from the device to the database. Yeah. Okay, are you guys still able to see my screen? Let me see if I can just...
Yes. Yeah, it's showing IoT Central Dev Kit 11.
Yeah, right.
We are good then.
Okay, great. So where we are currently, right, we have to now connect the dots, and starting our first hop is device, which is my cell phone. And I have IoT plug and play app installed, which is collecting all the telemetry data about my phone. Okay, so then the first hop was IoT central application. So let's start with the, and I have already built everything, so it won't take much time but at the same time, it's important that we understand what are the nuances of internally when you actually start with your IoT central application, what are the details behind the scene. So obviously the simple piece, which is you pick your resource group. Now you can give any resource group name, which is in this case IoT Central Dev Kit 111. What do I get? I get this URL. This one is important because now this is the one, it is building an application for me, which was seamless because already we have an application now. And this is the piece which I wanted to, make you guys go a little bit more detail. IoT Central application, it gives a lot of options as a beginner with the built-in many application. The beauty with that is that you have all the data already built in with these particular application, like water consumption monitoring, right? So you want to know what kind of telemetry you need to pick, then you want to so it is already it's doing that. So it's a good starting point if you want to get going with that, this entire piece as a project, and it can be a nice summer project to do with your kid also. In our case, because we are not picking any of the built-in these models, what they have, we will pick our custom application because we are picking something of our own. So that way, okay, so we can go and pick custom application region. This is another piece to be very, please be mindful or be careful when you are picking. If you are picking East US as a region for your IoT central application, now you know that we have to connect the dots. There are various components involved in the journey, and we make sure that you pick all other components also in the same region, because there can be two, like side effects of that, right? The cons. It can cause more cost, or it can be, it can add some extra latency. So, and there can be latency for various reasons, right? But at least these are the obvious things which you have to make sure that you are not picking you are making the right decision from the beginning. So that means that if it is in if we are picking US East or US East 2, then it has to stay within the same region, right? So this was the another consideration. Pricing plan, like, see, we are doing this demo, right? So I'm picking the minimum one and the lowest tier and pricing plan, and we are not doing the heavy scale IoT solution at this stage. So this is how you're going to pick. So with that, what we did, actually, we already built one, right? So as IoT Central Dev Kit 1.1, this is the one which is the application we have built. And what we got our IoT Central application URL. Hop 1 begins. Hop 1 means what? We want to make sure that now we connect our device in a secured manner with this particular IoT Central application, which we are about to add like some credentials and make it work. So let's add a device. Okay. So the device name, you can name whatever you want to name, right? Like my phone device or something, like if I have 3 devices of my own, one for one kid, for another kid, or something here and there, I can do whichever way I want to do. So you can do the naming convention, but the naming convention is still very important as a from the thought process, because when you build a large scale application, you need to understand that part and make a certain decision. Okay, so now we did the device name and device template, right? Remember, we have a IoT plug and play mobile that would come later on, but you start with unassigned. So when you create this new device, which I already did, so we got this my phone as a device. Okay, so this device you create, but it has no idea whose phone, what to do with that, right? So that means now what we are gonna do, we need to make a 1 minute, let me connect, right? This is the, when you create a device, every device gets certain unique number, and this particular your primary key, or a shared access signature token. This is the key piece, your ID scope, device ID, these are the key areas. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pick my these 3 settings, and I would go and I'll make a note of that. I'll go to my cell phone, and in my app there is a similar kind of area where it is looking for the ID scope, device ID, and this particular primary key. So this is the key piece, when you, because this we need to make sure that whether it is one device or every household, millions and trillions of those water bill meters, they all have to connect in a secured manner with your IoT application or IoT Central. So that is why this piece is important. Once we have this device, whether on the source side I have one device or million device, I'll be using this piece, and then I'll be putting that information on my cell phone side. When we do that, right, like I already did once, so my cell phone keeps connecting, but I've set the option on my cell phone that if I'm not using that app, then it would not collect the data. So you have to, like, what I'm just gonna do, that I'm gonna just start that app and then scan this QR code. It does take, like, there's a little bit of delay, takes few seconds, and then here this my phone disconnected, right? This piece, after a few seconds you would see this would show my phone is actually connected. So let's not wait for this, you would see in few seconds. Meanwhile, let's understand a little more around this device piece. Okay, so it talks about some battery level. Okay, see, you can just now right, so now my cell phone is connected. What kind of telemetry my cell phone is sending, what do we want to collect. Now all the decision making, because currently we are from the devices, but we have to move towards the next hop, which is insight. One quick thing, because that's something like, actually I like that, because I've picked this as an example, right? When my son's phone battery is gonna go low, and I should get some email notification. So this is a pretty simple in IoT application. You can set the rule, and what do you want to collect. Obviously my telemetry is battery level. There can be any other telemetry you can pick, from location, this, that. And if battery is less than 85, currently this one just for the sake of showing here, and then this is my email address. It's going to send email when that phone battery is below a certain level. So this is the one piece which I really like, so just wanted to show you that. Okay, now we have here device, and now we are getting now the good thing, or not, sorry, what tells that your device is correctly configured and you are ready to move to the next hop? When you see the device status provisioned, that is the piece. It is not easy to reach to this stage when you are actually using ESP32 and a small Python program. I do have that code also. I would upload that in whichever way, like location I would be getting here to upload, because if you are want to move to the next level, you can use that. But so in this case, currently we are successfully attached with our device, and all the telemetry data is getting collected. So device status is provisioned. That's the healthy state. The next hop is event hub, right? And if we just go and quickly want to take a This was right. So we are here IoT Central, and now the next hop is Event Hub. So the methodology and thought process, which would be exactly same, that we will be now creating one Event Hub. So you can go and then just go for the Event Hub. Event Hub is when we know that we have large volume data, big data, and we have lot of processing and the lowest latency requirements, and many times Event Hub directly you may want to jump on like creating the dashboards, not go towards that all the way from the database level. It gives us lot of options. End goal of this session, obviously we have too many moving parts to cover here, right? We cannot go into detail on each area, but since this is the piece which we have picked, our objective is to understand how nicely it would integrate with our IoT Central application, and it would keep moving the data for the next processing level of processing. So the Event Hub, if you have to create with the similar kind of, you can create a namespace, and I'm not going into this detail because here we don't have lot of decision making other than pick the same region which you have already picked for your as an event for your IoT Central, and pricing tier you can pick as per your requirement. Maybe you can stick with the basic also if it is just the demo purpose, and you can pick your throughput units too. In this case, when we pick the Event Hub, right, which we already did, we are sticking with the naming convention, Event Hub IoT Dev Kit, blah, blah. And this gives us the which is active, because why it is active? I need to connect after creating this Event Hub to my IoT Central. Then it would start sending the data. So once I create Event Hub, there is a shared access policy. With the same way of how Microsoft, these different various units being in the Azure, they are connecting the dots from one to the next, we get this connection string, right? So this is the piece which would help us to connect the dots from IoT Central application to Event Hub. So we go back to our IoT Central. What are we going to do? We want to export this data. We want to export this data in a you can name whatever you want to name this piece, and when you are exporting this data, I just have like you remember that I showed that shared access token. That is what you have to put, that shared access token here. Then once it would authenticate, and what is the method? In this case we are using the connection string, and then automatically once it authenticates, it would start sending the data. There are times, and this piece is very important, right? Another piece, that export status is healthy. We get the data. So data export is currently, because it is ongoing piece, right? It is enabled and it is continuously sending the data to Event Hub. If I see here last 12 hours, right? This is my cell phone, and from last couple of hours I switched it on, this plug and play, and it is sending the how many requests it received from IoT Central, how many messages were there, what was the throughput. And the good thing is, so far, like if you see that there were requests, but we did not have any failure in receiving the request. This is the second hop. So if we just go back to this piece, we reached Event Hub. Now we need to Azure SQL database, right? It's gonna get this heavy ingestion of data. We are between Azure SQL database and Event Hub. What is there between these two layers? Stream analytics job, because now we need to create the data pipeline. Data pipeline, but what kind of data pipeline? Why? What should be our thought process? Because now our data, we are starting to wear our data hat and starting to design. So one aspect. Up till this moment, Event Hub, you might have got trillions of types of telemetry data. Here is something based on your requirement. You have to see what matters. Maybe for me, my x-axis, y-axis, and the location of my phone matters a lot. So accordingly, I can pick. Then Azure SQL database, the really great thing with Azure SQL database, like geo-referential special data types, JSON data types, like lot of data types are so well integrated in Azure SQL database, and without any bias. Actually, more and more I work on this thing as part of an interesting various projects. I genuinely feel Azure SQL database is like one of the best fit for all these solutions. It can handle various data types, and we'll come to that why Azure SQL database when we reach there. We'll go in like more detail around Azure SQL database. So the stream analytics job, we have to now create a data pipeline which can receive the data from Event Hub and which can send that to the Azure SQL database. Let's talk about the stream analytics job in more detail. Let's go back to Let's create the data pipeline, and then we will discuss more about the stream analytics job. I have to make this a little bit of, yeah. So the next piece is we have to get the stream analytics job. So we are looking for a solution, which there can be multiple solution, but why, when you have a data which is coming in volley, in heavy load and large scale, and the latency is the something we want to keep minimum latency, stream analytics job work perfectly. It gives lot of flexibility with the various types of sources and various types of destinations, and we'll see how it does that. So when we pick our stream analytics job, this is something we already have one, but let's create one. So in that, when you create a new one, again the similar thing, you can pick your resource group, whatever is your resource group, and here all it is looking for the name of your device. So not too many, and how many streaming units you can at this stage you can pick, because we are making a small scale demo, so we can pick how many streaming units we are looking for, but not too many decisions at this stage other than picking a region and the size. Okay, so we do that, and that is how we named that, and here we get one stream analytics job. We have to build our data pipeline. Now the first decision will be, okay, what is your input? Good thing with the stream analytics job, it can directly connect to IoT Hub, which was one of the recipe coming in, my previous, the recipe one, which was there in one of the slide. Did we pick IoT Hub? No, we picked IoT Central Application. Okay, so in that case, what is the previous hop from where as our stream analytics job has to connect? That is Event Hub. Okay, so this is something that what is the input here from where we have to build our data pipeline is Event Hub. Okay, so we can pick here Event Hub, and that is what we did for while making our data pipeline from the input stream. Naming convention, I'm just doing it to make it very simple, Event Hub to stream to. Okay, so if you do that Event Hub to stream to, and obviously the similar methodology, right? So now we need not to go back and in each screen, but the point here is when you are connecting the dots, this is the one piece. It works very well. That's a beauty. That's a really great thing within Azure. But you need to make sure that we make a decision how we are going to connect, if it is connection string, and we pass the correct connection string, and accordingly it's going to make sure that it is going to be connected. You can test these things while building itself. Some of the lesson learned when you are connecting the dots from the device to database, each layer, it's a project on its own. Do not move forward if your previous layer is not working, because then it's very difficult to troubleshoot. So this is the piece which we got. So now, what is the decision? What do we want to pick? That's the key thing, right? And we'll discuss a little more detail around that. But now, since we are building the data pipeline, what is our output? Your output can have various destinations. You can pick Azure function, because if you have to do further logical data decision making process, and based on that further aggregation or some other kind of insight you have to run. You can directly dump the data into some blob storage if you are looking to just collect the data throughout the month, and then towards the end of the month you have to just generate the water bill, right? So you can do that also, blob storage. If it is Cosmos DB, then if you pick Cosmos DB, just for to give that, Yes, your source is coming from JSON. You picked Cosmos DB, no relation, like no SQL database or non-relational, it goes. But after that, if you have to do further aggregation, further processing, then you may find a lot of limitations there. So in our case, so the point here is like we have various kind of destination. So this makes definitely stream analytics job. It stands out when to build the data pipeline gives you a lot of flexibility from the source and the destination. What are we going to pick here? We are going to pick, and for the output is the SQL database. So in our case, we already have like whatever the alias you want to give that, stream to Azure SQL DB, and whichever way you want to connect SQL authentication or the managed identity, and then you can test that piece too. So in this case, let's see what we have done here. We have picked this one of the Azure SQL database. And before picking that, right? Yeah, okay, I missed that part. We want to make sure that now we have already made our mind. We have already decided what all columns are going to be inserted in Azure SQL database. What would be our table structure? In this case, because now currently we are connecting the dots going through the thin layer demo piece, and then we will come to that heavy layer. We will see, oh, now we have too much data. What do we do? How to reduce latency? But with this thin layer demo, which all we need is one single table, which can actually but pick the columns which are of our interest during the decision making of this data pipeline and insert that data in Azure SQL database. What I'm going to do, let's go and create that. So let's go to the Azure SQL database now.
So we do have a question I think is relevant to kind of that last step.
Sure.
And it's from Slack. It says, could you please briefly explain again why we cannot connect Stream Analytics directly to IoT Hub and need Event Hub in this scenario?
Oh, okay. Why we cannot connect Stream Analytics with IoT Hub? We can connect with IoT Hub. Okay, so let me go back to this particular diagram. Actually, that explains this particular. Yeah. So in this particular diagram, what we see that we have IoT Hub. IoT Hub is a little bit of, like if I translate that into layman's language, it's not giving you built-in dashboard. It's not giving you built-in various other simple application. And with the journey, when you become like little more, seasoned by building IoT solution, IoT Hub is a great piece. But there can be multiple recipes, right? So in our recipe, we did not pick IoT Hub. We picked IoT Central application, because with that, it gives me some built-in dashboards. It gives me a better control around from all the devices. It gives me a better management, and also it gives more options, because before creating your own IoT application, you go through many sample applications. You feel confident about that. So in our case, we picked IoT Central application. So now, if you ask this question, that why Stream Event Hub cannot connect to the stream processing, that was the question, right?
Yeah, it was phrased as so they've just responded, said, thanks, missed this difference. So I think we're good to go.
Okay, yeah. I think there was something like, because this piece, right? IoT Hub, IoT Event application, they all central application, they all sound similar. So,
yes, they do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But again, right, just to show that, so if stream processing, if we are picking this solution, from where it can take the source, what all sources it can accept the data from. So if we want to pick that piece and want to go back to this piece, the input piece, right? Stream Analytics job can accept the data as a from source IoT Hub, but in our case, we were not IoT Hub, right? So that is why we could not do that. It can pick from Event Hub. In our case, we are Event Hub because we are assuming our data is large scale, high volume, and it needs like a big data solution. So we picked Event Hub. If we would have just, throughout the month, just keep collecting the data, put in some dump storage kind of piece, then we might have picked the blob storage also. So that is why we picked Event Hub as a source. So that is why you can see that we are connecting the dots from Event Hub to Stream Analytics. Okay, so then this is the connection authentication mode and then the Stream Analytics. Here we are able to come, we have input stream set, we have output stream set. On both sides, we understood we have, in order to build this data pipeline, we had many options. What do we want to collect? And we have decided, I'm assuming currently, right, that what is important for us. So device ID, which device, because there can be multiple devices. And from my telemetry, okay, my certain type of x-axis, y-axis, few things are like, not to be honest required, but because while I was studying like what all kind of phone data is important, I might have like, later on realized that I may not need this gyroscope data, but you may see the some 0 rows, so ignore that piece. But before that, we need to create the similar kind of table, right, in Azure SQL database. What do we want to capture here and build this data pipeline? So we have already done that, and let's move to the next piece, which is Azure SQL database. So now how the data would move and with the Stream Analytics job, let's just spend 2 minutes to understand what are the capabilities we have with the Azure SQL database. What are the important decision making we need to do in order to build, because typically we know all about the Azure SQL database. Oh, these are the capabilities. But now we have to design our solution or pick the capability based on IoT solution requirement. So when you this one is already built in, deployed, Azure SQL Server and the database. In this database, what are the capabilities if we would be deciding for building a high scale, heavy ingestion Azure SQL, and to be able to handle high volume data in real time? We should be picking either premium, business critical, or hyperscale. And I would come to that why, because we will be discussing about some of the design consideration, and the top 3 design considerations when we will discuss, they are like, yes, we have to do that. So the premium business, hyperscale, if your data is huge, right, it can go up to 100 terabyte in this space, 100 terabyte in space, and up to 128 vCPU core. So hyperscale gives us like, a lot of flexibility when you have to scale up. In currently, like, since it is just my, demo session, I have picked a serverless and the bare minimum option, which is something which should not cause a huge cost. But when we actually go with the build some next level of design consideration, we need to move and scale up our deployment. Okay. So in this, if we see this particular database, we have some database, right? But this is the table, which is important that we create this particular IoT dev kit. And we have already decided the table structure, what matters to us. And in that case, like some of the float columns and the device ID. Since this table is already being created, you may see this is already there. Okay. Now we go back to, I'm sorry for this to and fro, my alt tab had some issue. What are we doing here? Quick recap. Input stream coming from Event Hub. Output is Azure SQL database. We need to make the decision, what all things we want to pick from our telemetry data. And here is that decision going on, that you select what you are going to pick. Accordingly, put your, the table structure on the other side, design that. And then you are selecting from Event Hub to Stream 2, because that was your source data pipeline. And this one is your output, Stream to Azure SQL DB2, because that is what we already created the output pipeline. So this is the one I want to run my stream analytics and data pipeline based on this particular decision. You can test the query. That's it. Obviously we need to test each and every hop, including this piece. Some of the x-axis, right? When I go around, like if I run outside and go, and then some of my phone location would start changing, and this. So some of the telemetry data, it would be, based on the phone movement, accordingly it can change, and it would give the battery, and already rule is set for the battery utilization. We have to go and start this data pipeline. So when you start this data pipeline, it's gonna run forever until you go and you stop that. Now assume that we are getting a high volume data right here with this particular piece. Azure SQL database. Azure SQL database is getting heavy ingestion of millions of rows. In that case, and we designed a table, okay, we had some decision making. We made the decision, okay, I need these 5 columns. But for the heavy ingestion of rows, what matters for that table, we keep it less heavy. We don't have to put too many indexes. But then comes that, oh, okay, we are keeping the table less heavy. We need to make sure that now what do we pick next, which can actually absorb the shock of this heavy volume data ingestion. And if anybody knows what is that, one of my favorite solution actually, memory optimized table, right? That would be the one which we can pick, because it is what it is doing, just the data ingestion. So let's go back to our, okay, we have to click view next here. So far we went through these many hops in our journey, from the device to IoT Central to Event Hub to Stream Analytics job, and then ingested data into Azure SQL database. When we started executing Stream Analytics job, it's gonna not stop, it's gonna run forever, and it would keep inserting the data into Azure SQL database. And we went through this small demo around this connecting the dots. Now we have to scale our solution. We have to scale using the Azure SQL database. There can be a couple of more scale up and scale out options, to be honest, right? But I wanted to pick like what are the most striking ones. What are the ones which actually makes Azure SQL database stand out by any and every means, and also gives us a lot of flexibility. And we already touched base with the data type, right? Like a multi-model database, like geospatial data types, JSON data type, all that, handling that, those pieces are important, and they help with the scale up solution. So we 128 core, 100 terabyte in memory table. So in memory table, they are that the how much it increases our capabilities of increasing that number of transactions per second, how much you can increase with the minimum latency. So that is the one when you're designing your table, right? Now what you do, design the two part. One is the landing zone. Design it with the table which is actually taking all the blow of stream analytics and taking all the ingestion. That should be heavy, that should not be heavy, that should be light. And then memory optimized table is one of the really good side of that, which you can pick and bring that. Other side, now, do we want to keep all the data in that little memory optimized table? No. After some time, we want to keep moving data somewhere else, right? So that's where you can have that, and maybe let me not do the further talking. Let's move there. So the one side, right? This methodology is nicely explained in Microsoft Learn module with the IoT solution, and this particular piece, and then all the links are also there towards the end. And this methodology with the building your landing zone, like because we work on the data warehousing side a lot, and the same thought process, you create a landing zone, create a table, how many columns we need, and then make a table that has a memory optimized table. So this way, this particular capability with the Azure SQL database, it is helping a lot with that, handling the heavy ingestion of data. And this is called like a shock absorber pattern also for the Azure IoT solution, if you want to pick that way. The second side, right? We, after a certain time, like maybe after a week or maybe after a day, you do not need that data in memory optimized table. You need to move that data in a, on a different table which can contain large scale historical data, work with that machine learning and analytics, etc. So for that piece, we can pick the column store index based table, which is something we know, right? If you go in detail, it's a logically organized as a table with the rows and column. That is how when you see that column store, but the physically it is stored in a column wise data format. So the bulk loading, that is such a simple bulk BCP or the bulk loading you can keep doing from your landing zone memory optimized table to this column store index table on a routine basis continuously or every end of the day kind of process, whatever works. So this column store index, it is index column store clustered column store indexes. It would reduce a lot with the storage footprint through compression up to 10 times and then improve the performance. So these are the two most important design considerations we must be doing, creating our sort of landing zone and then further storing the high volume data for further analytics. And as I mentioned, right, the JSON data type and varchar, max, they all the data types, they go gel well with the Azure SQL database. Any questions so far?
There are none in the chats as of now.
Okay, is that bad, or I hope it is okay? But anyways, let's keep moving.
Honestly, I think it's so clear, it's so well laid out that you're not sitting there like, well, gee, how did that happen? Just you're explaining everything so well. So I think it's very good.
Thanks for the encouragement, but yeah, so let's keep going. Okay. Now, if we just go, this is a big slide and too much text, right? Need not to read that, but it is basically giving us all the tools and high level things which we should be looking at for the scale out and scale up. And this picture is it's sort of, it gives us the nutshell kind of thing with the devices we did, and it's a concept, right? So we have devices, we did the event management layer with Event Hub and Stream Analytics job. We could have picked something else also, but now we are here. Landing zone, we picked the memory optimized table. Landing zone, we also made a decision what all data, how much, not how much, what all data we need here in Azure SQL database for our further processing. And then we did the further offloading using evening, like everyday BCP outcome into the column store index partition tables. That is where you can have, and then we used scale out option. When you are deploying these environment, these are like the super easy to deploy, and when you are using that as a consumer, they gives you maximum bucks out of your of your money. One piece to remember, if it is memory optimized table, you have to pick premium or business critical minimum, because otherwise memory optimized table cannot be part of your, they cannot be, you cannot create in general purpose or lower tier. However, it is an IoT solution, right? We are in a big deal. So anyways, we have to do the premium, business critical or hyperscale. We are talking about heavy volume, larger scale data. So anyways, we are already part of that tier from the Azure SQL side. So we have memory optimized table, then the clustered and the evening BCP. So I have these script numbered, layered one by one, because I knew that this, when 60 minutes, right, that how much you can cover, especially when you have too many moving parts. I'm happy to share each and every script which would actually create a database, exact database in Azure SQL, same as IoT, with the too many, like some trillions of events and the devices, and you can and it would create a memory optimized table and do the, and then plus the clustered column stored partition tables. Now we go with the scale out option. We want to offload our reads from this heavy ingestion business, what is going on in memory optimized table. Get your read only, read scale out, and move this particular table copy, which can be accessed or consumed, dashboarding, machine learning, whichever way we want to, from your from your read scale outward option. Any question? As we are moving towards the end, I would leave a few minutes for the questions.
None as of now. There are some comments in the chat saying how well this is laid out, and that's the reason they're not asking anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So far we did all our hops. We reached to our destination, and there can be multiple scale up and scale out pieces. That's why I would just go back to this particular screen, right? So there can be multiple options, which you may find, oh, temporal tables are also good. Let me do this, do that. But at the same time, you just stick with this thumb rule of in-memory in-memory tables and the column stored indexes, and then have the ingestion or the data landing zone, and then further stay in the next level of zone with the your analytics. You just stick with this particular approach. Life is simple. It's doing its best, and Azure SQL database, how it is integrating very well in this entire solution. That's like, it's an awesome piece. And read scale out is also built-in functionality. All you need to do is enable the geo replication, and you will get the read scale out. An auto failover group, that is something more. It is giving you the resiliency from the regional side if you want to have a DR region, and then you can build that too. With that, let's go back. We are back to our picture where we started our journey. Yes, we built our IoT solution using Azure SQL database. We understood the key nuances or the details in Azure SQL database to consider while you are building your Azure IoT solution. We understood how many options we have, too many components, but how simply or how nicely they integrate very well when you build your own recipe and you start connecting the dots from the one piece to the next piece. And here we are also somewhere sending our data from my phone or our devices to internet. So with that, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, because it's a weekday. I really appreciate your time to spend on your learning. And any question, I'll be happy to take. We have a few minutes left.
There are. So there's one from chat. It said, for scale out, would you recommend read access GRS or read access GZRS?
Read access GRS.
Yeah.
And yeah, and if somebody else has a, because that is what, based on what I think that should be the right option. If somebody else has anything else, I'll be happy to discuss here.
Yeah. And we have one that just came in off Slack. It says, when offloading historical data into column store, have batch sizes been optimized?
Batch sizes, like you would see number, recommended number 100,000, multiply by 1024, so whatever the number would be. Yeah, so yeah. Pick that number. That's a good way to start.
Okay. There are no other questions in any of the. There's a handful of chats to monitor, so let me just triple check here. Yeah, it looks like we're question clear everywhere else. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. There you see a lot of IoT presentations where they talk about the gathering of the data, and a lot where they talk about the destination, and in the middle there's like the cloud magic, right? And that kind of gets skipped. So I like the way you laid it out hop to hop, because it's easy to get lost in this stuff. Like you said, there's tons of options to gather the data, move it along, where to put it, and all that.
Right.
And I like the way it made a lot of sense to me, and based on comments and chats and stuff to others as well. So really, really nice job.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's totally agree. There are too many moving parts. This is like just few reference links which I went through because it's
just a couple.
Just a couple. Because nobody is giving like a one picture, right? How you start from your device and you reach to the database and that
right.
next step. So you have to keep connecting the dots based on like too many videos and too many, knowledge building and plural site. But yeah, exactly the same thing. Nobody was giving the full picture. So I thought, okay, let's build the full picture. And but more I went into this, more I felt that, really Azure SQL database is great choice. You feel confident, and it is connecting the dots from all perspective, and Azure solution, how they are built, integrate very well.
So there is a question that's more of kind of a comment question, but it said, "Wonderful job. Would certainly try this out someday if they could." Did ask if you could provide those links somehow, throw it up on a blog or something, because there look like a lot of helpful things in there, but it was too much to screenshot.
Yes, yeah, no, I know, definitely, yeah. Even I put that slide with that intent only, that this was gonna go wherever we have to give, all
Yeah.
slides and scripts. And yes, I would share that definitely, yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I've always had an interest in playing with this stuff, but the presentations I've watched on it was never clear. It's basically like, all right, there's still a gap here that I'm going to have to figure out, and I'm too lazy to do that. You kind of cleared those gaps. I feel like I could walk away from this, be like, all right, I need to figure out what I want to monitor, but I now kind of know all the steps to take to do with the data what I want to do. So really, really cool.
Thank you.
And I think that is
yeah. Thanks.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying thank you so much to everybody for the time.
And if you're in the Slack, Andrew's just noted that all the resources from all the speakers will be uploaded to the GitHub repo, which is listed there. But it's github.com/8kb/2023-May.
Yes,
also,
absolutely. We try and get all the speakers to upload their stuff in the next week or so, and then we'll tweet that out saying that all the resources are available. Just want to say that was an amazing session, Surbhi. Thank you so much.
Thanks.